So I will have to confess this to you. I'm a little in my feels today. See, my oldest child, my son Landon, is turning 17 next week. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, I know I kept him alive that long. But I know what you're thinking. Man, he looks good for having a kid that age. And I appreciate your thought, I really do. No, but what it has done is it's made my wife and I really reflective. And so we look back on this journey, and really it's a wild thing when you think about it. You go from having no children to having this perfect, beautiful little human being, you know? And we went through all the classes. We read a lot of the books. We've seen the videos, but I don't know if you guys felt this way, but there is nothing that can quite prepare you for what's going to happen. And here's where it was tough. In the couple days following his birth, we were chilling, man. Like, we were in Winnie Palmer, and we had the best nurses in the world taking care of us, the best team taking care of us. If we needed diapers, there's this magical drawer with diapers ready to go. If we needed help with swaddling, here they are. If we needed help with feeding or anything, they had a person come in and help us. And so we were crushing the parenting game until they decided to discharge us and send us home, which created a spiral pretty quickly, because I remember immediately stressing. Oh, I gotta make sure the baby seat's in right. It's gotta be strapped in right. They won't let me go home unless I can do this. And so I'm stressing and freaking out about this. And at the same time, we then get in the car and I set off on the most stressful drive of my entire life. I am white knuckled down I-4 driving the slowest I have ever driven all the way home. And then my wife Amanda and I, we looked at each other when we got home and got inside, and it hit us. Now what? Right? Like, what do we do now? We had this exciting and this life-changing experience and moment, but now what do we do? There are no nurses. There's no real plan. It's just us and a newborn and a bunch of anxiety. And that, in a very similar way, is how we find the people of Galatia in Galatians chapter 5, because Paul has been unpacking this life-changing truth of the gospel. In Galatians 5, verse 1, he says this: "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free." Now, this sentence has always annoyed me, because I read it, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free." Like, yeah, no duh. For freedom, he has set us free. Like, what do you mean by this? But what we see is that Paul is making a point, because these early Christians, they were freed from their sin, but they were locking themselves back up in legalism. They were trying to earn God's approval. They were measuring their faith by their performance. They were living for the validation of other people. It's like they were freed from one jail only to then place themselves in another one, but one made of guilt and shame and rules. And what Paul is saying is like, hey, guys, listen. It is for freedom that you were set free. So live free. You're free from all this stuff. It's not about performance. You're free from shame. You're free from chasing other people's approval. But now the Galatians are asking themselves the same question that Amanda and I asked us when we brought Landon home. Now what? What do we do with this new freedom? And what Paul is going to tell them and tell us is that you and I have a choice to make. Every single day we are choosing, do I want to become this or that? Do I want to feed the flesh, or do I want to walk in the Spirit? And so really, here's what Paul is asking. Now that you're free, who are you becoming? And he says it like this in Galatians 5, starting in verse 16. He says, "So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law." So how many of us, I wonder, know what Paul's talking about here? Like, have you ever felt that pull inside of you? There's that part of you that wants to do your best to follow Jesus, but then there's this other part of you that wants to do what it wants to do. Because that is what Paul is talking about here. He says that there is a conflict. There is a war going on inside of you, and the Spirit wants to lead you towards freedom and towards joy and becoming more like Jesus. But the flesh, it wants what it wants, when it wants it, how it wants it. And these two things are in conflict with each other because they want different things. They're pulling you in opposite directions. They want you to become two totally different people. And so if you've ever felt that internal tug of war, you're not crazy. You're not broken. Paul would tell you you're at war. And just to make sure that we're seeing the same sky, I want to take a minute just to define our terms, because when Paul is referring to the Spirit, he does not mean your soul. What Paul is talking about is the Holy Spirit, which you received after you decided to follow Jesus. And the Spirit is God's presence living inside of you, guiding you and leading you, also changing you from the inside out. But then when Paul uses the word flesh, he is not talking about our physical bodies, because if Paul were to say, well, don't feed your physical body, it's terrible medical advice. Instead, what he's saying is he's referring to your sarkcs, which is a Greek word, which is a fun word to say. So say it with me, Sarkcs, okay? I told you, it's fun, Sarkcs. We'll say it over and over again, don't worry. But the Sarkcs is referring to your sinful nature. It can literally mean flesh, but in the context that Paul is using it, it actually means something way deeper. Think of your Sarkcs as your default operating system before you were connected to the Spirit. And like the default settings on your phone, unless you change them, it's going to operate the way it was designed to operate. It's going to operate the way it's always operated. It is going to run the same way that it was always programmed to run. And see, our sarkcs, or our sinful nature, is programmed to put yourself first, to grab control, to crave attention. This is where jealousy and lust and pride and insecurity and anger get to live rent-free. Think about this. Have you ever said something or done something and then thought, whoa, that was really dark. That was really ugly. Where did that come from in me? Paul would say, the sarkcs. Have you ever wanted something right now, even though you know it wasn't good for you? Where does that come from? It comes from your sarkcs. Have you ever felt like you continually had to prove yourself and win the validation of everyone around you? That's right, you guessed it. That comes from the sarkcs. But here's the good news. You don't have to feed it. You don't have to follow it. You're not a prisoner to your flesh. You get to choose. And when you choose to walk by the Spirit, what we're going to see is that you actually get a brand new set of desires. You don't just say no to the old life. What you're doing is you're saying yes to a better one. There's this old Cherokee coming of age story that paints a powerful picture of what we're talking about here. There's a young man in his tribe, and he is ready to become a man, and so he seeks out the wisest elder of the tribe. And he approaches him and he says, I'm ready to become a man, but I want to become a good man like you. So what do I need to do? And then the elder considers this for a moment, and he responds to him and says, I'm sorry, but I'm not a good man. Like, inside of me, there's two wolves, and they're constantly fighting each other. The first wolf is evil. This is where anger and resentment and revenge and pride and greed lives. And then the other wolf is good. This is where love and gentleness and kindness and forgiveness and self-control lives. And he says, this battle between the good and the evil wolf that's inside of me, I'm sorry to say, it's inside of you too. And it's inside of every single one of us. So this young man begins to think about what he just heard. Then he asks this question. He goes, okay, so which wolf wins? And then the elder very simply responds with, the one you feed. The one you feed. And that's exactly what Paul is saying in Galatians 5, that inside of you, inside of us, there is this daily battle between the spirit and the flesh. And the one that wins is the one you feed, which leads us to our big idea today, that what you feed leads. Say it with me. What you feed leads. What you feed leads. Now here's the thing, you can't feed both wolves at the same time. Not only is that not an option, it's not possible. It's like trying to walk in two different directions at the same time. You can't do it. Like you can't be gossiping and showing grace at the same time. You can't fuel your bitterness and walk in forgiveness at the same time. You can't feed your anxiety and then trust God at the same time. You can't feed both. Only one will win, and the one that you feed, that's the one that grows. The one you feed leads. And if you feed the flesh, if you keep saying yes to things like pride and control and comparison and resentment, that is ultimately what is going to lead your decisions and shape your relationships and define your mindset. But if you feed the Spirit, if you walk in the Spirit, if you lean in and you listen and you respond to Him, then that is what's going to begin to lead your life. It's not just about which one of these gets stronger. It's about the one that we choose to let lead. Because every single day, you and I are feeding one wolf or the other. And the one that you feed is the one that you follow, because what you feed leads. And then maybe you hear about this struggle, and then you start thinking to yourself, but Matt, if I am struggling so badly with this, if the fight is so strong in me, if there's so much evil inside of me, then maybe I'm not following Jesus quite like I thought I was. Maybe I'm broken. But listen, the struggle with this fight and with this battle within is not a sign that you're lost. It's a sign that you're human. In fact, it's one of the clearest signs that you've actually been made new in Jesus, because before that, there was no fight. All we did was feed the flesh. There was nothing going on inside of us because we didn't know any different. But now, once you started following Christ and you received the Holy Spirit, the war is on. And if you have that struggle, you're actually in good company, because you know who else felt that way? The Apostle Paul. In Romans 7, this is what Paul says. It says, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. It's like Paul is saying, I don't even know what's going on inside of me. I can't figure my own self out, because the things that I know are good for me, the things that I want to do, I don't do. And the things that I know are harmful, the things I don't want to do, the things I hate, I do. There was a struggle that he felt as well. And I wonder if anybody else felt like that or has felt that before. I think we all have. Paul has felt stuck in that same way, but he knew the problem wasn't a lack of love for God. So if you're feeling that in a weird way, I want you to feel encouraged. Because the battle between your flesh and the Spirit, it doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're in the fight. And so what I want to do is I want us to get practical. Like, I want us to break these things down, because we've been talking about this internal battle, and that's cute and that's great, but what does it actually mean? Like, what does it mean to actually feed the flesh? What does it actually mean to walk in the Spirit? And so what I want to do is I want to start by talking about the flesh, okay? What does that mean? What does that look like? And when we talk about the feeding the flesh, what we're talking about is feeding the old you, You know what I'm talking about? The BC, before Christ version of you. This is the version of you that is self-centered and self-obsessed. That is what we're talking about when we're talking about feeding the flesh. It's not just about you doing something bad. It's about putting you at the center. Our flesh says, it's about me. If it feels good, do it. Get even. Get yours. It's a lot of the feelings that if we're being honest with each other, that you and I are fighting every single day. I think we all know what we're talking about here, but just in case we don't, Paul makes it extremely clear for us in Galatians 5:19. This is what he says. The acts of the flesh are obvious. So what he's saying is like, if you're wondering what it looks like to feed the flesh, newsflash, it's obvious. You know it. When someone is letting the flesh lead, you'll know it, you'll see it, you'll know it when you see it. That is what Paul is saying. But in case you need a little bit of help, if in case we can be a little bit more clear, he gives us a list. And he says this list is this. The acts of the flesh are obvious. They're sexual immorality, impurity. Oh, when I get to yours, raise your hand, okay? I'm kidding. And debauchery, idolatry and witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, meaning this is like an ongoing conversation, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. But see, here's the danger of a list like this, is that it's possible for you and I to read this list and think, oh, he's not talking to me. I'm good. Because listen, I don't even know what debauchery means. I've never built an idol. I've never led a riot, so I'm good. But we're friends here, okay? So let me challenge you on that a little bit, because Paul throws in this little nugget here. He says, and the like, meaning this is not a complete list. This is just the starter pack, okay? This is just the beginning, because again, when someone walks in the flesh, you know it because it's obvious. And it's not always about doing bad things. It is about some of the things that we think, and it's putting ourselves at the center. So let me give you this scenario, okay? Let's just say that you're with a group of people and you take a group photo. Maybe it's a bunch of friends or it's family, you're on vacation. And then you ask, hey, let me see the picture. And they turn their phone around. What is the first thing you look at every single time? You, always, right? But here's the thing. You're not just looking at you. You are going full CSI on you. You are zooming in, you are investigating, you're looking at every detail. How's my smile? Are my eyes open? How's my hairline look? Do I look tired to you? And you're going through this whole process looking at you, right? And if the photo's good, awesome, love it, post it, frame it, hashtag memories, right? But what if you look bad in that photo? It doesn't matter how everyone else looks. Your first reaction, delete it immediately, get rid of it. I don't even want it to live on your phone. You'll take the phone and you'll hit delete for them, right? I don't even care if it's grandma's last photo. This is it, it's gone, it didn't happen. Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about. Friends, that's the flesh. The flesh isn't always about feeding evil. The flesh is just self-centered. It's self-focused. It's me first. It's the default setting of our heart without the Spirit. And Paul's trying to show us that the flesh, it shows up in obvious sins, yes, but it also shows up in subtle instincts as well. It's the what do I want? How do I look? Why doesn't everyone else act the way that I want them to act? And so here's the thing about the flesh, and here's the danger of it. It never stays quiet. The more you feed it, the louder it gets, the stronger it gets. And pretty soon, the flesh isn't just influencing your life, it's leading it. And this is why letting the flesh lead is ultimately dangerous. James, the brother of Jesus, says this in James chapter 1. He says, but each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it's full grown, gives birth to death. What James is saying is, guys, this is a process. It's a slippery slope. It may seem small at first. It may seem like it's just that one drink at the party. It may just have started as that one text that you know you shouldn't have sent. It may have started with just one glance that lingered just a little too long. It never feels big at the start, but the flesh never stays small, and over time it grows. And not only does it grow, it takes over and it dominates, and it ultimately leads to death. And not just physical death always, but death to your peace, death to your joy, death to your relationships. And let's not forget what Paul throws in at the end of verse 21. He says, I warn you as I did before that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. And for that reason, this is why what Paul says in verse 16 is so amazing. Remember what he says in 16. He says, so I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of your flesh. This is not a suggestion. This is not a wish. This is a promise. Paul is saying that if you walk by the Spirit, you will not gratify. If you do this, then you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. That when you walk with the Spirit, those fleshly desires, they lose their grip. They don't get the chance to grow up and take over. They don't get the final say. You cut them off before they ever take root. And it's not because this internal war ends or it disappears, but it's because the power shifts. The Spirit starts leading and winning, and at the same time, the desires of the flesh begin to weaken. And it's not because you got stronger, but it's because you are walking with the one who is. And that's the invitation that we have to walk with the Spirit. It's not try harder so that God will love you more. It's not about working to show off to others and to God how much you love Him. It's about embracing how much God already loves you. It's about walking with the one who already loves you perfectly. And that will change your desires. That's what changes your direction. Overcoming sin is not about gritting your teeth and trying harder. It's about filling your heart, filling it with truth and with love and with grace. Because when you're full of what matters, you lose the appetite for what doesn't. Sin may remain, but it no longer reigns. Why? Because what you feed leads. So now the question is, what does it actually look like to walk in the Spirit? Because it sounds great, right? But what does it mean? Well, the Greek word for walk that Paul uses, it implies a habitual, consistent movement. It's like a steady, step-by-step journey. And listen, I know that walking is not flashy or impressive. Every time I tell my friends who run that I went for a walk this morning, I feel their judgment. And you know exactly who you are. All right? Walking isn't flashy or impressive, but it's faithful. And that's the offer before us, not to try harder, but to walk closer. Paul says it like this in verse 18. He says, but if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. In other words, walking in the Spirit is not about performance. It's not about following all the rules. It's not about impressing God. It's about relationship. It's about daily dependence. It's staying in step with the one who loves you completely. So what do? We take our next step. We begin doing the things that stir our affections for God. We turn down the noise and we tune in to His voice. And when you do that, guess what happens? Guess what begins to grow? Paul tells us this in verse 5:22. It says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. What Paul is saying that this is the stuff that grows naturally inside of us when we begin to walk with the Spirit. This is who we become when we walk with him. This is what Jesus was talking about in John 15:5. He says, I am the vine. You are the branches. If you remain in me, if you stay connected to me, if you walk with me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Notice what Jesus didn't say. He didn't say, if you try really, really hard to grow some impressive fruit, you will bear much fruit. He said, remain in me, stay connected to me, and the fruit will grow. You will begin to change from the inside out, not the outside in, because you can't fake this kind of life. For example, let's just say that I grabbed a 2x4 and a bunch of oranges, and I started nailing these oranges to the 2x4. Do I all of a sudden have an orange tree? No. Or if I take a dead tree and I begin tying apples to this dead tree, did all of a sudden this dead tree come back to life? No, because that's not how it works. You can't duct tape gentleness and staple joy into your calendar and expect it to last, because fruit doesn't give life. Life produces fruit. That's how transformation works. You don't grow spiritually by trying harder. You grow it by walking more closely. It's not about your ability, it's about your consistency. And listen, I have worked and I have seen some of the most incredible ministry leaders who are no longer in ministry anymore. And it's not about their talent, and it's not about their ability, because they were some of the best thinkers, communicators, best at caring for people, some of the best leaders I've ever seen or worked with. So the problem wasn't about their ability or their talent, it was about what they chose to feed, because what you feed leads. And if you keep feeding the flesh, if you keep chasing control or comparison and comfort, that's where you'll be led. On the flip side, if you feed the Spirit, if you walk in the Spirit through worship and reading the Bible and community and surrender, guys, it's all the Sunday school answers that we already know. It's not a knowledge problem. But when we start doing these things, we will be led into freedom. Because remember, what you feed leads. And when you feed the Spirit, you will transform from the inside out. Fruit will grow and ultimate freedom will be found. Our theme for 2025 here at Grace is becoming. And here's what we've been saying. You've probably heard Pastor Mike say it a million times, that you are not who you are who you're becoming, right? In other words, you're becoming tomorrow based on the steps you take today. So if you don't like where you are in life, if you don't like who you're becoming, if you've made mistakes and had some missteps along the way, guess what? The good news is you're not stuck. You're not finished. You're not done. The game is not over. You are becoming. And becoming doesn't happen overnight. Walking with the Spirit is just that. It is a walk. It is not a sprint. It's not about doing everything all at once. It's not about taking 18 giant leaps at the same time, because what we don't want is for this to feel like, look like, or end like a New Year's resolution. We want this to be something that is sustainable and ongoing and consistent. It's about one step at a time. It's one step of trust. It's one step of surrender, one step of obedience, and it's one step after another. And guess what? When you've got two steps going, what are you doing? You're walking. So the question isn't, what do I have to fix? The question is, which direction do I need to take my next step? And if you don't know where to begin, We've been talking about the 7 priorities all year. These are the things that we believe, the areas of life that we believe the Spirit is asking us and calling us to grow in. And it's not the same for everybody. We all have strengths and weaknesses in different ones. But I believe that your next step is probably tucked away in one of these 7 priorities. And if you want to learn more, and in fact, I encourage you to, I ask you to take out your phone and tap that navy circle on one of the chairs in front of you, because it will take you to a website that you'll see the 7 priorities. And there we've got tons of resources, recommended books, recommended videos, recommended things for you to grow in each one of those areas. But just in case, I want to walk through them with you really quick. For some of you, you need to take a step in your spiritual life. It is about taking a step in trust toward Jesus, or it's talking to him again, or it's getting close to him again. Maybe for you, it's your emotional life. It's about stopping avoiding what's going on in here and letting Jesus actually in to heal it. Maybe it's making an appointment to talk to one of our professional licensed counselors next door. It could be taking a step in your physical life. And I know that this sounds ironic, but maybe your next step is actually getting more sleep. It's taking care of yourself. Or it's when you show up physically, whoever it is that you show up to and show up for, you're fully there, you're fully present. Maybe it's your family life and it's showing up consistently, showing up with love and patience. Or it's your relational life. For so long you've been doing life alone and it's time for you to find your people and to let someone in. Maybe it's your financial life. It's not, and maybe it is trusting God with your finance, but it's also coming up with a plan. Like, I know this is where my wife and I are. We're trying to figure that out, because guess what? You don't just learn how to make investments. You don't learn how to come up with a plan. You have to be taught it, and you have to be intentional. Maybe for you, the step you need to feed is your generational life. It's time for you to start pouring into someone who's a little behind you, a little bit younger than you. Maybe it's time to start serving at the church. It's time to start serving and showing up for the future church. And again, we don't need to do all 7 of these things. In fact, we don't want you to. We want you to focus on one and focus on getting just a little bit better every single day, about taking another step every single day. And we don't expect you to be perfect. In fact, I promise you, this is what's going to happen. You're going to take a step, and then you're going to stumble one step backwards. But that's okay as long as you keep walking. This is about consistency and following the Spirit step by step, because what you feed leads. Even if it's a small step. Every time you take a step with the Spirit, whether it's big or small, something new is happening inside of you. And day by day and step by step, you are becoming more and more like the person that God created you to be.